Hi there once again, and welcome to another Expresso mechanic tutorial. And in this one we're going to be building what you see on the screen, which is of course a working carousel. In order to achieve the desired result, we're going to be using a combination of Xpresso and MoGraph, and it will be the MoGraph that's doing most of the hard work for us on this occasion. Now, as you can see, the spline profile for the horse is quite a complex object. So rather than letting you build that yourself, I've made it available. The file is available for you to download, and I've put a link to that within the show notes. Anyway, that's what we're going to be about in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this happen. We'll start by bringing in a circle. Its plane needs to be XZ. Now we can leave this circle at 200 radius, that's fine. We'll command drag to copy another two circles, and we'll start working with these and adjusting their radii. So circle 2 needs to be 260, and circle 3, or rather circle 3, our third circle, it needs to be 320. And that gives us the starting point for our carousel. Now, the next thing to do is select our circle 1 and make this 15 degrees in its rotation H, because we do need to offset these. And the circle 2 will make 30. We can then select all of our circles and make them editable. Switch to point mode, and we can see that we need to actually add some more points and subdivide these. So if we select all and subdivide, we'll do the same thing again. So I'm holding down the control key and getting this menu up and then selecting subdivide. And that sets our circles up ready to go. Now we need to select every other point. And then we can move these up in our position Y by 25. But we can't do it here, which always annoys me. So in our spline menu, we have move. So we can set point value. Now we need to set our position Y to 25. And there we go. We've got our first circle set up and ready for us. We need to do exactly the same with all the others. So we'll go through that and do it. So we'll select this one on this occasion. I think I've selected a wrong point somewhere, or have I? So look, see what I've done. Aha, this is the wrong one. So that's the wrong one. So let's just sort this out. That's better. And then we can go back and do the same thing again. So let's see where we are. We can just hit apply. There we go. Our second circle is set. And then we just need to do our final one. Again, we'll start with this point this time. Work round. And hit spacebar once again to go back here. Hit apply, and we're done. So that gives us 3 circles set up, and these are going to be the paths, of course, that our horses on our carousel will use to move up and down. That's what they're going to be ultimately used for. Now we've got our paths, so what we'll do is rename these. Just call this path 1, path 2, path 3. And then what I'm going to do is select all and command drag to copy them once again, and these will rename rail 1, 2 and 3. And you'll see what we're going to be using these for a little bit later. Okay, so we've got those set up. I'm just going to arrange them slightly differently so that we get them like that. Now the paths and the rails, they do need to be separate. So we'll select all of our rails, just Command select, and then we can just by eye take a hold of these and just move them. Now we want actually to move the rails, not the points. So just move them that much. And that's as much as we need to do. So that part of it is already set up and quite ready to go. We don't need to do any more work with our splines. We can group these. We can just put them into, let's have a look. So if we just Option G, just group them into a null, and we call these just spline paths, or paths and rails. Let's call them paths stroke rails. That's fine. Just spell paths correctly. Oops, not like that. Paths and rails. There we go. Great, so we can move on from here and think about the next step, and that will be to bring in a floor pan. For the floor, we need to bring in a cylinder. It's in the correct orientation, but its radius needs to be 200, or rather 400, I beg your pardon. And its height needs to be 5. We want 1 height segment and 60 rotation segments. And in the caps, I will add a fillet and I'll make it 2 centimeters. The next thing to do is position it. So I'm going to switch to my right hand view, so F3, and just move this up by eye so that it's just above my paths. And that will do nicely for the floor. Now, we can also bring in a ceiling. So if we Command drag to copy our floor, and we'll rename this cylinder floor and this one ceiling. Now the ceiling, at the moment I'm not going to position it accurately. I'm just going to move it out of the way and leave it there for now, and then we'll think about doing the next part of this, which will be the center upright. But before we bring the upright in, the last thing we need to do with the ceiling is just change the radius to 398. Just needs to be that little bit smaller. Okay, fantastic. So let's bring in a cone, and we can start working with this. Now, we'll just move it so that we can see it a little bit more clearly. The top radius, that needs to be 150. And the bottom radius we can leave at 100. The height needs to be 220. So it just needs to be that little bit higher. And we need to work with our height segments and bring that down to 1, and our rotation segments can be 8. Everything else can stay the same. That's fantastic. Let's switch to our right hand view, so F3, and then we can think about positioning. So if we just bring this down to here, and we're going to, again, you can do this by eye. It doesn't have to be done 100% perfectly. Let's just get it so that we can see where we are. Just bring that down just about there. That should be fine. And then we can position our ceiling. So we can drop this down so that it's here, sitting on top of our upright cone. That'll be fine. I think that looks acceptable to me. Let's have a look. Just make sure. I think it just needs to be down a little bit further, doesn't it? Just somewhere there. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so we've got things that far, and it's all starting to come together. The next thing we need to do is bring in a cone once again, and this will be the actual roof of our carousel. The top radius on this occasion needs to be 10. We just want to allow a little bit. And our bottom radius, 396. That's great. Our height segments, we can say 1. And 60 rotation segments to make this nice and smooth. And we can just drop that on top of our ceiling. Again, we'll switch to our right hand view, so F3. Just make sure of where we are. That's it. So we can just drop that there. Great, so that's got us that far. And we can think about the next stage, which will be to make the actual rounding board that goes around the actual ceiling and roof section. But once again, before we go there, we'll just rename our cones roof and upright. That's fine. Fantastic. So let's think about moving on and working with some more splines. Once again, we're going to be working with circles, so we'll bring one of those in, make the radius 400 and the plane XZ. And then I'll move this into position. It's going to be just below the level of the roof. And again, you can do this by eye. It doesn't have to be perfect. Next step is to command drag to copy a second circle, and I'm going to switch to my right hand view and then just position this, and it wants to be so that we've got just about 2 of these squares between the 2 circles. We can then make the final step, which is to adjust the radius to 430 for our top circle. Return to our 3D view, so F1, select both of our circles, hit C to make them editable, and we are already in points mode. We can just select our top circle and work with that first. So I'll adjust my view, select one point, Command A to select all. At least I'd like to use Command A to select all if it will let me, but if it won't, I'll just have to do something else. Yeah, it will let me do it now. Don't know why I didn't before. But anyway, we've got all of our points selected. Control and click to bring up our menu and then hit subdivide. And I'm going to do the same again. So now we can think about where we're going next. Well, as we've done before, we'll select every other point. I'll just adjust my view so that I can see what I'm doing. And there we go. So we've got all of our points or every other point selected, and we can just move these up. And again, totally by eye. The finishing step is to come into our spline menu, down to our tangents, and hit hard interpolation. And now we've got a kind of a crown effect going round our top part of our rounding board, which is exactly what I want. We can now think about working with the bottom circle. So once again, select one point, Command A to select all. And then we can think about subdividing this. So once again, hold down the Command key and click to bring up the menu, hit subdivide, same thing again, and do it another time. So 3 subdivisions at the bottom. I'm now going to switch to my top view, so F2, and then we can start having a look at where we are here. Now, before we do any more, let's just go back to the 3D view, so F1. I've just got to select my first point because I've got to make sure of where I am, and that needs to be here. So I'm just away from this tip here, just one point in. F2 to go back to our top view, and once again we can select every other point. Fantastic. F1 again to go back to our 3D view, and then I'm going to move these down and just about that much and leave that there. Fabulous. So we've got a nice profile set up and ready to go. We'll select both of our circles, hold down Option and Command, and place these into a loft. Fabulous. Now at the moment it's a bit of a mess. It isn't where it needs to be, so we need to do a little bit of work with this loft to make it look good. First thing we can do is make our subdivision U 200. Our caps, we don't need start or end caps, so we can get rid of those, and we can see that that's already greatly improved things. In our subdivision V, we'll make this 20. And finally, our isopalm subdivision U, I'm going to make that 49. And if we change our display to garage shading lines and isopalms, we can see that we're getting a nice result. Now at the moment, it's flat. It's completely flat. We want to add some thickness, so we'll drop it into a thicken, hold down the Option key and select thicken. And we've got that there. Now, in order to set this up, we need the thickness to be 5 and our position we're going to make -100, and that sets it up as we need it to be. And now it's in the correct place and it's looking really, really good. Fantastic. So we can move on from here and create a base part. We'll bring in a tube object this time. In fact, we'll change this to rounding board up here first. So we've got that done. We'll bring in a tube object and we can set this up. So our outer radius we can make 430. Our inner radius 401. And then we can think about what we're doing with our rotation segments. Well, we'll make those 60. And our height we'll make 50. And that's looking good. Now, the only other thing we need to worry about is our fillet, and that can be just 2 centimeters once again. And then we can move this into place. I'll just switch to the right-hand view, so F3, and then we'll move this up. Somewhere around there. That looks as if that will work perfectly well. So great. So we've got our base part set up. Let's just name it base. And that's ready to go. The next step then is to actually think about using some cloners to place some objects around our floor and also around our ceiling. And these will be the effectively little spigots that the poles from the horses will slide through. So we'll need those. They're a bit like grommets, actually, that kind of thing. So that's going to be our next step. We'll start by bringing in another tube object and we'll set this up. Just take it down here. This time the outer radius only needs to be 5 and the inner 3, so a small object. Its height needs to be 6. We can make height segments 1, doesn't really matter. The rotation segments we'll leave at 16, that's okay. And the last step is to set up the fillet, which is 0.2. So we've got our object, we can just bring this over here so that we can see it. So a very, very small object. The next thing to do is hold down the Option key and drop it into a cloner. And then we can set this up and think about where we're going from here. In fact, what I'll do, let's just go back a few stages, put that back in the middle, and then what we can do is drop it into the cloner. I think we'll get a better result that way. Let's just drop it into there, that's better. And we'll make this cloner a radial cloner. And we'll set it up from here. The count needs to be 10. The radius on this occasion 200. And we need to set an offset of 18 degrees. And then we can bring this up so that it's just sitting on the floor. If we change to our right hand view, so F3 once again, and we'll just zoom in and see what we can see. Yeah, if we just bring this up so that it's just sitting on the floor, that will be fine. Okay, so that's our first cloner set up. We'll command drag to copy this tube so that we've got a second one, and then do the same again. Let's just drop this. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. Rather than do that, let's copy the cloner. So we'll command drag to copy the cloner, and we've got a second one set up. We can then work with this one. Again, everything is the same except that we need the radius set to 260. That gives us our second set, and then we can do one more and make the radius on this occasion 320, and that sets all of that up ready to go. We can then start to rename these. We'll call them spigots. Inner B for bottom, we'll leave it at that. And these can be spigots middle or mid B, and spigots bot, or rather outer, I should say, outer B. And there we go, we've got the spigots set up. The next thing to do then is copy these. So we'll command drag to copy and then move them up, and then we can just switch to our right hand view once again and get these placed, and they can go somewhere around there. That'll do nicely. And we can just put a T on the end of these so that we know they're the top ones. And there we go. We've got them all done. So that takes care of our spigots. Now the final thing for us is to put some lights around the top of the ceiling. We want 100 of those. So we'll set those up with another cloner. Our light bulbs will be hemispheres. So we'll bring a sphere in, set it to hemisphere, and it wants a radius of just 5. That will work fine for us. And then we can think about where we're going to place this. Well, it needs to be around a star, so we'll grab one of those in. It needs to be in the XZ plane. We'll just move it up and we can work out what we want to do with its parameters. Now at the moment it's got 8 points, we want 10. That's definite. And we need to make it larger, which we will do. Let's just think about our radii now. What about our outer radius? We can make that 320. Probably a bit more than that actually. If we go 360, we're getting close to it, aren't we? Let's just have a look at our top view, so F2. Yeah, we're not far off. I think we can go a little bit further actually. We could probably go 380. Yeah, I mean I think 380 will work fine. And we'll work with our inner radius as well, make this slightly bigger. Let's go try 160. Yeah, and I mean that's looking quite nice. It's outside of here. We can probably go a little bit further than that actually. If we go 180, yeah, I think that's going to work. 180 is going to work pretty well, I think, for us. So we'll leave that as it is, and we can leave it. Actually, we can just leave it there. We don't need to offset it any. It's going to work fine. The next thing to do then is to clone the hemispheres around the star. So holding down, with the sphere selected, holding down the option key, we'll drop it into a cloner, and then we can set this up. It needs to be in object mode, of course. The object needs to be our star, and we need to increase our count to 100. And we can see now that we're getting the actual objects cloned onto the actual star, but we can see that they're upside down. So in our transform tab, in our rotation P, we'll make this 180, and that turns them up the correct way. If we just switch to our right hand view again, so F3, we can move the star upwards and just get them in the correct place, which is about there. Yeah, that's great. So they're all level with the ceiling now, or with the bottom of the ceiling. Fantastic. So we've got it that far, and it's all looking really great. The final step then is for us to create the poles and of course the horses that are mounted on them. If I just switch to another file, this is how I went about creating the spline profile for the horse. I literally downloaded an image from the internet, put it on a flat plane, switched to my front view, hit H so that I could see the whole thing, and then zoomed in and started creating a spline profile, just a Bezier spline profile, and I left it in adaptive. And that enabled me to do what you can see here. Now, as I said at the start of the tutorial, this is available for download, so you don't have to make your own, but you don't even have to use this one. If you want to make your own profile, you could use steam engines, you could use, I don't know, a car. There's so many different things that you can use. You don't have to use a horse, but I just decided to keep things traditional and use this image. But anyway, that's what I did. So I've got my horse spline. I'll hit Command C to copy, go back into my scene file, not that one, my tutorial file, and paste this in, and we've got it there. Now you can see that it's a little bit too big at the moment. We do have to scale this. Let's just move it to where we can actually see it. Yeah, it's too big, but that's fine. We can easily scale that down. So if we start by going into our tools here, axis center, and just execute that so that we get it in the middle of the horse, and then we can think about scaling. We'll scale in the X, Y, but we'll leave the Z alone. Just bring this down to a level that we think is about right. And again, do this by eye. You don't have to be too pedantic about it. Whatever works is fine. And that looks to me as if it will be about the right size. It's not far off. I think that's okay. But again, if needs be, you can always make an adjustment afterwards. It stays completely procedural in this respect, although, well, this isn't truly procedural, but you know what I mean. We can scale afterwards. Okay, brilliant. So we've got that far. The next thing to do is worry about the actual poles that these go on, because we need to mount the horse on a pole. So we'll work that out and then we'll move on from there. We'll reach for a cylinder, so bring one of those in. It wants to be 250 high and only 3 in the radius. Now let's just bring this over here somewhere so that we can see it. So you can see that that's going to stretch from beneath the floor to above the ceiling, which is what it needs to do. The rotation segments we can leave at 16. The height segments, well, I made them 20. And if we just have a look in our display, it won't give us it yet, will it? Okay, not a problem. Let's just go over here. In fact, will it give us some, if we go there? Garage shading. It's not garage shading lines, it's this wireframe. Yeah, we can see the height segments there. That's what we want to see. Now, what I did, the reason I did this is because I dropped this into a twist deformer, or I dropped a twist deformer into the object, I perhaps should say. So let's hit the shift key and grab a hold of a twist deformer. Fit parent, which it is. And then we've got an angle here. Now, I need to go pretty crazy with this in order to get it to work. So I rotated it around 1,200, I think I went to. Something like that. So it gave me a real twist in the actual object. And we can see it there. So that's created it as it would look actually in a fairground. And what we can then do is simply hit C to make this editable. In fact, that's not correct. What we need to do is say current state to object, actually. So let's go down here, say current state to object, and do that. So we've got this cylinder here. We now no longer need. We can take that away because this is the cylinder that we're going to be working with. So that's our pole. We call that pole. And that's ready to go. The next thing then to worry about is the actual horse, and that needs, of course, to be put into an extrude. So with our horse spline selected, we'll drop that, holding down the option key, into an extrusion. So into the extrude there, and we'll make this 15. That should be around the correct depth. Caps, we can put a little bit of rounding on, make them say 3. Perhaps a little bit too much, make it say, yeah, we'll go with, I think, go with 2. Yeah, I think 2's enough. Maybe even 1, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, just so that there's a little bit of it on there. Yeah, 1 is fine. I think we'll leave that as it is. We'll just change it back to isopalms, which is a nicer setting. Now, the next thing to do is work out where we're going to drop these into the pole. Now, at the moment, the pole is facing along its z-axis this way. The horse is wrong, so we need to rotate that horse by 90 degrees. So look, see where we are. That's the wrong way. Make it minus 90. Minus 90. That's perfectly good. And then we can just bring the horse over here. And again, I'm only going to do this by eye. I'm not going to be too pedantic about it. Just get it just about in the middle of the pole. Somewhere around there. Let's just zoom in and just get a bit closer so that we can see what we're doing. Make sure it's just about in the middle. I think it is actually. Yeah, it's not far off, is it? Not enough to worry about. So that's okay. All looking very good. Now, another thing that we've got to do. The pole, at the moment, its axes are in the middle. That's no good. We need them to be at the very bottom. So once again, we'll reach for our axis tool here. And we'll offset the axes by minus 100 in the Y. And now they're in the correct place. Okay, fantastic. We've got it that far, and now we're ready to think about cloning our horses. We'll just rename this extrude horse, and we can drop that into the pole to make them one object. We can then clone the pole, so we'll grab a hold of a cloner, hold down the option key, drop that in there, and we just need to set this up. So the mode will be object. The object that we'll be interested in will be path 1. So we'll bring that in to here, and we also need the rail. So we'll bring in rail 1. And we've got things sort of set up, but they're not quite right, are they? So we just need to check this target box, and now things are looking really good. We've got our horses and they're all correct. These are in the correct positions and they're going through the spigots, which is exactly what we want. Let's move on. We'll command drag to copy so that we've got a second cloner, and then we'll set this one up. We can drag in path 2 for our object and rail 2 for our rail, and that gets everything set up looking very, very nice, but you can see that they're not through the spigots. So we've got to work with this offset, and if we just see where we can bring this to, well, that's not far off. 6% is not far off, but it's probably a bit less, so try 5.8. Yeah, 5.8. If we just zoom in so that we can just get a bit closer and see what we're doing. Yeah, I think 5.8 is going to work. That's going to work for us. So we can leave it there. I mean, if you want to be, you know, super accurate about it, have another play around with it and see what you can do. But 5.8, I think that'll do. That'll work for me. So let's just copy another cloner. Drop this down here. Once again, we'll set this up. So path 3 and rail 3. And then we just need to work with the offset once again. So we've got 5.8 and we need to set this one up to, not going to be 11.8. In fact, it probably might be 5.8 times, try 5.8 times 2 in there. 5.8 multiplied by 2. Well, it's not far off, is it? It's not far off. 11.6. Let's just see where we are. Yeah, 11.6 is not far. It's not far off. Might need to go a little bit more. 11.65. Something like that, I would say, would be okay. I think we'll get away with that. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. I think 11.65 is absolutely fine. So we've got our horses and they're all set up and ready to play. And they all look quite nice, and I think they're going to work out reasonably well for us. So how do we actually make this thing do the do? Well, we turn to our great friend Expresso, and that's where we're going next. Before we actually start with the Expresso, we need to group a few things. Now, we know that the thing is going to rotate as the horses move up and down. So we need to group a few objects and make sure that they all rotate as well. Now the base object, that won't move. That can be separate. But this cloner needs to be dropped into down below the rounding board. So the rounding board is at the top with the roof. In fact, the roof could be considered the first object that we need. So we've got our cloner for the light bulbs there. We've got that done. The star, we can drop this below the cloner because that will have to rotate too. The upright will rotate, the ceiling will rotate, the floor will rotate, and also the spigots, they will rotate. So all of these need to be beneath the floor. The splines won't be rotating, so we can leave them separate down at the bottom. So we need all of these because it'll be grouped. So we'll say Option G, and they're now grouped, and we can just call these the rotating group. That'll be fine for that. So we know that all of this is going to move. Now, the next thing to do is bring in a null, name it Expresso, give it an Expresso tag. We've got the editor open and we're ready to start work. We'll bring in a time node. And as per usual, I want to work with frames, not time. So we'll take that away. Moving on from here, we need a math node. So we'll bring one of those in. And our function needs to be modulo. And input to 300. And we can connect that accordingly. The next step is to bring in two range mappers. So we'll come down to calculate, range mapper, bring our first in, and we'll just command drag to copy our second and leave this down here for now. We're interested in working with this one first. Now, our output from the modulo we can plumb into the input of the range mapper. So we've got that set up. And then we can worry about what we're doing down here. Now, our input lower will be 0, our input upper 300, because of course we're getting whatever's coming out of the modulo, and we know that's a value between 0 and 300. And our output lower and upper, they can be 0 and 1. They don't need to be changed. The next thing we can do is work with these cloners. We'll name this inner horses and mid horses, and finally outer horses, so they're easy to distinguish between. And what we'll do is just move those below our rotation group there. Okay, so fantastic, we've got that far. Now we'll bring in the inner horses, and at the input stage we need to work with our offset value. So let's see where we are. We've got our offset here. That's what we're interested in. And we can plumb the output of our range mapper in there. Now if we play the timeline, straight away we get a result. So we can see that that's doing the job. We'll give ourselves a few more frames, make it about, I don't know, 1,000 for what it is. Doesn't really matter. In fact, what we'll do, let's make it 1200, because that way we should be able to loop the animation. But anyway, we've got that done. We've got our inner horses and they're set up and ready to go. Now we also need to work with our mid and outer horses, but we can't just plumb the range mapper into these because they're set up differently. So let's just firstly come down to our object properties and put the offsets in. We'll get that sorted out. Okay, so they're ready. But before we can plumb those in, as I say, we've got to do a little bit more work. So let's move them out of the way. And what we need to do is bring in two add nodes. So two more math nodes, and they need to be adds. So we've got the first one. Drop the second one in by command dragging there. And then we can think about what we're going to do. Now, we can connect the output of the range mapper to input 1 of both of our math nodes. But we've got to worry about the offsets, because we know that our mid horses have got an offset of 5.8. So we've got to put that in here, but it can't be 5.8 because it's got to be as value between 0 and 1. So we need to say 0. Let's have a look, see where we are. I think it was 5.8, wasn't it? So 0.58 should work. So it's got to be a very small number. We're working in hundredths, or even thousands getting on for, aren't we? But it's certainly hundredths. And then we can say with this one, let's have a look at our offset here. We've got 11.65. Again, it will be 0.01165 if it will allow us to do that. Let's see where we are. So let's say 0.01165. And it will only allow us to go to 0.0116. But let's see what we get with that. Hopefully that will be okay. If we just plumb these in. Well, that's moved that back a bit, so we need to do a little bit of work here. Let's just see if we can do something with that, make that a little bit different. Let's have a look, see where we are. We need to just make it it's got to be the correct number. Try 1, 2, or even go a little bit different to that. Try 11.65 there. I don't think that will work. Oh, it does. That's my fault then, so it should have been 0.1165 there. That's correct. Okay, fantastic. So we've got it working. Now let's see what happens when we play. We should find that we get dancing horses, which we do, all looking very, very nice. The last thing that we need to do though is make the rest of the carousel rotate along with the horses. So we can plumb the output of the modulo into the bottom range mapper's input. And then we can think about setting this one up. This needs to be, again, input lower 0, input upper 300. And the output range needs to be set to degrees, and 0 to 360 is what we need in there. So that's absolutely fine. Then all we need to do is bring in our rotation group, or our rotating group, I should say. And then set our coordinates to transform rotation H. And now we should, all things being fair, get the result that we want. So let's play. And look at that. We now have a beautiful carousel working exactly as we would want it to. Fantastic. And that really does look great, doesn't it? And it wasn't difficult to achieve. Not really. I mean, the Expresso for that is pretty simple, really, when you look at it. It's pretty straightforward. Just a few nodes. Nothing particularly clever. As I said earlier, the MoGraph is doing the hard work for us, really. That's the thing that's making it easy for us, really. Cloning all these horses and making them move. Fantastic. It really does look good. Just to finish it off, what I did, I mean, you don't have to do it necessarily, but I copied one of the horses. If I just get a horse, just copy this down here. I made it a lot smaller. So we'll come into, in fact, what we'll do is scale it in all axes. Just made it smaller. And then I was able to put that on top of the carousel. Just put it in the middle somewhere there. And I placed it on top there with a cylinder there. If I just drag that cylinder to inside the horse and we just zero it out. That's in the correct place, don't need to worry about that, that's fine. Made it a lot smaller. Let's go into the object, make that something like 2, and that, I don't know, 10. It might need to be a bit bigger object. We'll just get to where we need to be. It just needs to be a little bit bigger, I think. Yeah, just a little bit bigger than that. Needs to be in the middle of the horse. We just make it somewhere around, let's go, I don't know, 18. That should be okay. Just drop that there, make it 18. And then all we've got to do is move our horse so that it's just in the center or thereabouts of the top of the carousel. And that just does that. That's a little ornament that sits on the top, and that just finishes that off quite nicely. If we drop our horse in our rotating group. Just put it above the roof. That's fine. And then we can play our animation, and that rotates perfectly well. That's great. And then with the horses, I mean, you'll notice that mine were all different colours. What I did in order to make that happen, I created a random effector. In fact, I use several random effectors. I'll just bring that down here. Just put it above the horses there. Let's create a couple more. Select all of them. And what I did in the parameters here, I wanted to use color. So I just put effector color in there. And then all we need to do is give an effector to each of our cloners. We don't need to transform, where are we? We don't need to transform, where are we there? Oh, it's wrong. Random effector, I need to select that. I don't need to transform any of this, so switch that off. That's fine. And I'm just changing colors. Let's have a look, see if it's effector color or if it's something else. I think it is effector color that I used. Blending mode, I think I added, yes, just use the add blending mode, and that gives us some nice colors. As I say, same thing with these others. Just go into here, drop random one in there. Again, in the object, we don't wish to transform that, but we do wish to transform the colors, which is what we've got. We've got colors there, effector color, blending mode, add. We can change the random seed as well so that they're not exactly the same. Make that something like that. I think that will look good. And then finally, this last one, we can just do the same thing again. Drop random 2 in there. Transform, where are we? We don't want that. We do want color. We do want add. And we do want to change this to something like that. And there you go, you've got some coloured horses, and that just makes it look quite nice. And they dance around beautifully. Yeah, all looks really good. I also played around with Redshift with the lights. I just made them emissive, and again I turned up the emission quite high and used the bloom effect in the actual camera in order to create the effect I was looking for, to make the lights glow and look as if they were, you know, generating quite a lot of light. But that's, I'll let you play around with that. You're probably far better at playing around with texturing and stuff like that than I am, so I'll leave you to do what you like with it. But anyway, that is how you go about making a working carousel. And that just about brings us to the end of this tutorial. So, as always, I really hope you've enjoyed doing this one and that it's given you some ideas for things you may be able to incorporate in your own projects. And if you have enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and of course, ring the bell. And wherever you happen to be on social media, please do share this video, because all this good stuff really does help keep the channel moving in the right direction. But anyway, that just about brings the curtain down on this one, so I'll see you very soon on the next tutorial.